to the Talon Outdoor Show. I'm Charlie.
I'm JD.
I'm Fred.
Captain Paul Tire.
And I'm Grant.
All right, then. That was the show.
See y'all next week. Bye.
That was it.
Well,
right before we started rolling the microphones, it was like, well, what are we going to talk about? Well, we had a 10-minute conversation in here. Y'all talking about boats and a secret fishing spot, which I'm going to announce later. Just out of spite.
What you talking about?
I'm going to give away your secret fishing place. All you have to do there is subscribe to a little-known concept known as trespassing. I mean, it's as old as time.
It is crazy what people will do.
Oh, yeah.
My uncle used to have a little private pond over near Chattahoochee, way off in the woods, and we would go down there, and this is in the middle of nowhere, and somehow or another it got found by people that lived in the area. I don't know.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know how, but people would go in there, and we'd find remnants of people that go in there and leaving their bait. Leaving buckets.
Trash around.
Yeah, leaving trash and stuff and going in there and fishing in my uncle's pond on his property in the middle of, way out away from everything. And
Charlie, with security plantation, you don't have much problems with people breaking in places to fish.
Actually,
do you really?
There was one up in northeast Leon County where we had a guy had neighborhood reports of a young man getting on a bicycle. He's a thug, but his family
the bike was stolen.
I don't know. The bike was stolen. We stole his bike, threw it in a dumpster. So he was going on to one of our clients' properties, climbing a fence, going in there and fishing, catching bass out of the pond, and then going down and selling them to the neighbors.
Oh, gee.
And we got wind of it, and one of my guys went out there and found a bicycle, and he ran from him. So we took his bicycle and his fishing poles and threw them in a dumpster, way away. And, we called law enforcement, obviously, and they said, well, that's abandoned property. You can sit right there. And say, if it's abandoned property, that's the same thing we do with homeless people on properties. When we tell people to leave, when we run these strip malls and properties that we patrol. And the police, they got to be, professional and polite and above board and
turn it in with a property receipt.
Yeah, with a property receipt. You leave a shopping cart full of crap on one of our properties, and we know we've told you to leave, and I can't find you to get you to leave. My guys are strict instructions to take that shopping cart full of stuff, put it in the dumpster, and then roll the shopping cart back to whatever local business establishment or as close as we can that it was stolen from, because it's stolen property. You can't take a shopping cart away from.
You know how much I don't know what they cost now, but we used to deal with that a lot of time here in town. Those shopping carts are like $500 a piece. Now, they were over the back then felony theft was $300 or more. Yeah. I don't know what it is now.
I think it still is, but the fact is you can get those things. There's $7.
Mm-hmm.
They reached.
They reached.
I know. At the time I worked at FSU Police Department, when I worked there, the years I worked there, it was past the threshold of felony theft. So it was over $300. I think they're probably up to like $5.
I have gone to several businesses before. They were cleaning out a trailer park that had been abandoned for a while, and believe it or not, there was a bunch of shopping carts there.
Shocker.
And they had dumped them off the property onto one of my clients' properties, and I didn't want the homeless people going there and getting them and using them. So I went around all the local businesses and made phone calls and visited. And one was Publix, one was Walmart, one was the people that have shopping carts. And Big Lots, and there was a Big Lots on the property, and they got theirs, and the Publix sent somebody over there to get theirs, and Walmart didn't give two craps about theirs, but we have our whole company now, not locally, but to some degree, but up on the larger properties, and it's not just plantations, it's farms and homes, and it's largely based around people trespassing. Poaching, trespassing, and I don't get trespassing. I have a hard time. If I find myself, I pull in the wrong driveway and have to U-turn and get out of there, I feel uncomfortable. Yeah. Because I don't want to be where I don't belong. If I go down a dirt road and there's a field, I'm not going out there. If I find myself walking, like if we I get along great with my neighbors, but if we shoot a deer and it crosses the line, I'm making a phone call. Because I just don't feel comfortable, and there's roads right across the dirt road where I live, going on to a rather large piece of property, and those folks are great folks. They've got gates up. My nephew has the code, and he said, "Oh yeah, you can go down there," and they said, "Yeah, you can go to," unless you say, "Come on over," I ain't going. because I just don't feel, I don't want to have, I feel like I have to justify why I'm somewhere I don't belong. Now, by the same token, if I catch you dumping trash on my property, we're going to have a problem.
Yeah.
We're going to have a conversation?
No, we're going to have a conversation, and it ain't going to be one you want to have.
I got to where I enjoy watching these Instagram reels and videos, YouTube videos of the people that are the guys that are fishing on public water, and they get up around somebody's dock, and you get the mad homeowner, the Karens of the world. You can't fish there. Yeah, I can. I'm on public water. I had a guy try to run me off of public water one time out in Mississippi, and I'm on a publicly accessible to the Mississippi River, and I'm on the Mississippi side. It's different on the Louisiana side, because out there where I used to duck hunt, it was the line that depended on which side of the lake or which side of the water you were on. They have private property on public water in Louisiana. As crazy as that sounds,
it's French code law.
And it is the high water mark and so many feet from the high water mark and all that.
It's
You
not
can
the
be
same everywhere.
You can be out there in a lake and you think, I'm on the lake. I put in at a public ramp and I didn't get out of the boat to get where I'm at, and that's kind of like Florida. That's Florida law. But out there, I talked to one of the guys from Mississippi. He said, you're fine in Mississippi. He said, but when you cross over to the other side of Lake Chotard and you're on the Louisiana side, he said, if you see a posted sign and there's a half a mile of water on the other side of it, you better stay out of there. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me. They can keep you off of that water, off the land, under the water, under 20-foot deep water. You know, when those oxbow lakes, when the river floods, they'll put 20 foot of water where there wasn't any water before. Yeah. But you better respect those signs. I didn't learn it the hard way, but I got educated by it because
I can understand the rationale, because like take my property where I live. Mm-hmm. I own to the middle of the pond.
Right.
I own the ground.
The ground to the middle of the pond.
Yeah. Now, under the riparian right law, then the neighbor can get in his boat and ride over my property.
Right.
And I can't get him for trespassing. Now, if he gets out and steps on it, we got a problem.
Right.
Even if he's, ankle deep in the water, because he's on my private property. Different when you're talking about publicly accessible waterways, and then you got federal waterways that are going to overrule whatever state laws in place, and then you deal with that. So it's a complicated issue.
It's a big issue out west right now with the hunting and public land and public land hunting out west, and they have these what they call corner crossings where you have to cross over a piece of private. You'll have basically 4 fence lines coming together, and the far fence line or the far end of the property over there is public land. Federally owned land that's publicly accessible for hunting, but you have to cross over the corner of somebody else's property. I'm talking about 2 feet a corner of the property to get to that public land. And of course, the people that own those corner properties don't want anybody, because that's more land accessible to them from their property. So they have always treated that as their land, even though it was federally owned.
And they ain't paying any taxes on it.
And not paying any taxes on it. It ain't their property. Mm-hmm. There was just a big court ruling out west somewhere about these corner crossings and then I was reading some articles of the guys were telling you how to legally do that, and it's basically you set up a ladder.
Yeah, I was going to say you do a backflip over it.
Go over the fence with a ladder and get over onto the public land that you have accessible to one corner, whatever, and you can get from public land to public land or accessible land to public land. And the legal.
What you hunting with a ladder for? We're going to do some trespassing.
We're going to do 10 seconds. We're going to do 2 feet of trespass. Well, those guys would guard those corners to keep people out of that public land, because that's, like I said, thousands of acres.
Camouflage hunting ladders for sale.
That's just. Come on. Because then that guy that you're keeping from doing that, go get him a drone and be perfectly legal flying around while he's trying to hunt, as long as he doesn't get below a certain. There are people that will go and set up hunting stands on public lake bottoms that are on properties, but they're so below the high water mark and blah blah blah. It's just such a. But when the minute they leave that stuff abandoned, it becomes abandoned. We'll be right back. So we were talking before about trespassing and things like that. And I run into things where people will they'll hunt right on the property line. I mean, they'll get right on the line, and then you run into situation where there's really nowhere for them to shoot on their side, but there's clear land on the property owner I represent over there. That there's plenty of, but they'll put their stuff right on the line facing that, and you know what's going on. It ain't right. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out they're trying to shoot a deer on your side of the line.
So is that illegal or illegal?
Well, you can't do anything about them having to stand there.
No,
Go ahead, Mr. Attorney.
So
Attorney Conrad. Go
I'll
ahead.
never forget. This was one of the first case law studies in property law in law school. The case is an ancient England case out of 1500 something. Pearson versus Post. And there were some fox hunters,
known as the PP case,
and they shot a fox, and the fox went across the property line and died on the other side of the, I guess, Post's property. I don't know which one Pearson or Post was, but
was it posted?
Maybe that's where that comes from. But
Good chance.
The ruling in the case was where the noxious beast, as it was referred to in this property case, because I remember I had a kick out of that. This noxious beast, and he's a freaking red fox. And he died on whatever property the noxious beast died on. The owner of that property owns the noxious beast.
Yeah.
So if you shoot a deer and he runs over and dies on your neighbor's property, that's your neighbor's deer.
Mm-hmm.
Which is what keeps me from shooting deer in Clarn Lakes in my front yard, because I'm afraid they'd pile up on the neighbor's front porch, and then we'd have all kind of problems.
Yeah,
which is why you should try your best to get along with your neighbors and get along with people that are around you, and don't push the envelope. So people hunt on the property line.
How about that? How about just being a decent human and not avoiding all of this stuff?
But you got to understand how many people I grew up with, and poaching was a business for them. They're gonna find a place. They're gonna go set up somewhere and sneak in the woods and kill a deer and sneak out. I mean, because they didn't have anywhere they could hunt, and that's where the big deer were. Now, I'm very familiar with that concept. I didn't do it because I wasn't a big hunter growing up, but if I had been a big hunter growing up, it might have been a different story. So I'm very familiar with trespassing, because we used to run around shine deer at night just for fun, and we'd probably in some farmer's field. There's all kinds of stories that I could tell on that. And I've told a few. I'll tell some more later. But when you set up like that, keep in mind it's legal to put a stand on the line, but it's not legal to shoot a deer on the other person's property. In Florida, if you shoot across the property line,
you're in trouble.
In an attempt to take game, it's a felony. All right, that's trespass. This trespass by projectile, I think is what they kind of call it. But there's a statute specifically aimed at that. And so now
that's the way.
If a bullet crosses the line, it's not as big a deal. But if it's in an attempt to take game, but then you got to worry about, okay, well, did they know they were trespassing? How did you define the lines? Was it properly posted? Did they access it from a public waterway? Were they above the high water mark? It just goes on and on. It's really complicated, but so there are solutions. And what you do is, when somebody's doing that, you go set up game cameras on your side of the property facing their side of the property. and if you're smart, you get some of these security cameras that you can talk over and ring an alarm. And it's harassing a hunter, which is not legal. But then again, what they're doing is not legal. And if you're going to bend the rules, bend it on behalf of trying to enforce the law in your behalf. And so, you set up a camera, that there before daylight, and you've got one of these cellular capable security cameras, and a deer's coming out there, and you're sitting there watching. You can turn the light on. You're shining the light on your property, right? You can speak through it and go, "Hey, how's your hunting going?" That kind of thing. Deer takes off, and the next thing you know, they find somewhere else to put their tree stand, and then they probably will call you, and you can say, "Well, let's come up with a solution." I've sat through these meetings before where we have discussed between two neighbors, finding a workable solution.
So you can put these cameras and they can look at across the property, and you can talk to the person on the other side of the property.
Yes, sir.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering. So my neighbor's pool, she's pretty attractive.
No.
Just
you're that guy that flies a drone over there, and it causes bad case law.
When Charlie first started getting into all this stuff and doing the cell cameras, and hey, look at this, and taking these cell camera pictures, I knew where one of them was. near a certain part of Lake Ammonia. I knew where one of them cameras absolutely was. I mean, I could see it from the water, and you don't know how much restraint I showed into not going up there and doing not so nice things.
Well, there were some fishing spots. There's an area where people fish, and they also like to go up there and get off the boat. Where they were getting off the boat on private property, and they were swimming in the lake. And where they were technically was above the high water mark. Yeah, and then they were above the high water mark trespassing.
They're not bright,
and they were dumping their garbage.
Darwin's going to take care of that anyway.
They were dumping their garbage in their trash, and they were building campfires and stuff, and they were doing all this stuff, and they were setting up swings on. And so it became a liability issue. It became a dumping issue. It became all this, and so a client hired us to try to do something about it. So we put up these big signs, and we put up cameras. And people would literally take a fishing pole with a garbage bag and drape a garbage bag over the camera way up a tree so they couldn't. I had 3 cameras stolen from a local business in Tallahassee just a couple weeks ago. Somebody shimmied up a phone. I had to put up on the pole with a ladder, and somebody got up that ladder and took the camera, the solar panel. They went in a bit and took all that stuff, and those cameras didn't save to the cloud. They saved to the camera. I thought they were inaccessible, but apparently they weren't. So I've gone back and put them back up again. This time it's going to take a bucket truck.
I was going to ask, did you grease the ladder?
I started to wrap. I started to wrap the telephone pole with barbed wire. And I thought that was a little excessive and a little bit of a liability concern.
You could get like some ghost pepper sauce and just kind of
sprinkle it around.
You know, I happen to have some ghost pepper salsa that I have not eaten at the house that I may go sling out up there.
I mean, that'd be a way to do it. Yeah.
It's just, the thing is people go to such, and I think it was kids wanting to tag it with graffiti, because that's really the only stuff that's happened there. And, you know, people just don't have anything better to do sometimes than to cause mischief. And it cost me about $800, but, you know, in cameras. And a lot of aggravation. But the thing is there's technology now allows you so many ways to combat things that are going on. Or you can go spend $40-something thousand and get you one of those pull behind trailers with the flashy blinky blue lights like they got at the coffee shop by the interstate in Mariana. Those trailers are like $40,000, and you know, but you can do the same thing for a couple $100.
Huh? What are you talking about?
What trailer are you talking about?
There's this company. There's this company that offers.
We went from cameras to that, and I don't know. I'm lost.
Blinky. What?
There's this company that will rent or sell you these trailers where they have multiple video cameras on. It's solar powered. You go park it in the parking lot somewhere. You'll see it in pay lots and stuff in South Florida. In bigger areas, and they'll have these blue lights blinking, and they've apparently, I don't know if they got somebody watching these things or not, but but they're a deterrent, and you know, it's they put one at a brand new coffee shop between the truck stop and the coffee shop at the interstate in Mariana. And I understand if you got a construction site, those things are actually pretty handy because a lot of stuff.
What are they looking
happen.
for at a truck stop?
They trying to keep people out of the truck stop, or
I think they put it up when they were building the coffee shop, and they finished the coffee shop,
they never
and the thing's still sitting there. And
I got you.
You know, I don't know. They're spending money on. I mean, I like the business model. I love the business model. Matter of fact, we offer that same service by putting cameras out, but we don't. No, they're not that kind of money. That's silly, crazy. But
that's kind of a weird story. I mean, of course, it's been a weird week.
Yeah.
So
weird week,
I heard you had an encounter.
Yeah. So I'm walking as it's court on Cinco de Mayo. You know, I've got tacos on the mind. And
that happens on
dreaming
the 5th
about
of May, right?
Havana daydreaming.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm looking forward to a little tequila, a little bit of beer, some tacos, and hot sauce and whatnot, jalapenos, and come out of court and done for the day. And I park in my dad's office parking lot, law firm downtown, and it's right across the street from courthouse. So I one of the perks of having your old man in a downtown law firm. And I get in my truck, and I always, got my tie off and everything. Finished with court for the day. And I look to my left, and at the bottom of the hill in the parking lot, there's 2 llamas. And I'm like, what is going on here? And
did you recognize the llama?
I didn't recognize the llama.
You know, these creatures seem to find
they do
that specific
and
one.
I'm like, what is up here? I mean, of all people to spot a llama. And my history with llamas is not great.
Past episodes, folks.
Yeah, and they got hats on. There's two llamas. This is in a downtown Tallahassee parking lot. There are two llamas with hats on them. And I'm like, what on earth is going on?
There wasn't no.
I mean,
There wasn't any deputies holding the rope.
there was no deputies, but there was one of them did have a rope on it. And I'm looking down there, and I'm like, there's two llamas with hats on it. One of them's got a rope. And there was another lawyer who was going into the office, and I said, look, nobody's going to believe this. Would you go down here and take a picture of me with these two llamas with hats on? He's like, you going to hold the rope? And I'm like, nope.
Inside story, folks.
And I'm like, no. And so I look at one of the llamas. He kind of starts gritting his teeth, and I'm like,
Yep, gonna spit on you.
and I got a picture with the llama, and I sent it to people. And then, of course, I put it on Facebook, and then I'm just getting hazed on Facebook. You know, where's the donkey? Oh, there he is. Are you the one on the left? I mean, what happened to your hair? I mean, you know, and I'm like, I just can't win for. I mean, I just wanted to document that there was two llamas downtown outside the courthouse.
So look at that picture of two llamas and a jackass. There you go.
Yeah. So I can't tell the backstory because it's got too much profanity in it, but nevertheless,
Oh, you can tell it on the break.
it's been a weird week. A weird week. I mean, and I don't.
We'll be right back. And we're back. The endless summer blast that comes up after the summer's over with at our Dothan range, the massive, that thing, I've been seeing the registrations come in, and that's filling up. If it's not already, I think it's probably already full, like they do every year. So, and
Big
the
shooting
Dothan
competition.
Talon range at Dothan, there again, the competition opportunities, they're doing some classes. There's all kinds of stuff going on up in there. That's this shooting sport, and the local opportunities for people to shoot just continue to grow and grow and grow. And our facility just keeps getting nicer and nicer. And, you know, so if you're in the Wiregrass area and you're looking to rent a gun, we are now a stocking Glock dealer, and we have all kinds of guns for sales. We are doing we can help you outfit an AR if you buy a lower from us. We can help you get all the parts together and work with you on the assembly of said parts. There's a process to it, but can help you outfit an AR-15, so a custom built AR, and we have that stuff for sale all the time, and you can walk right outside and shoot that. And we're moving cans, silencers, suppressors, whatever you want to call them. That business has been picking up tremendously.
What's the average wait time on a silencer these days?
Did he?
Trust or no trust?
No trust.
No trust. Individual. It takes longer to get your account set up and get everything processed on the front end than it does to get the tax stamp back. So let's just say a week probably to get your account all set up and to get the DocuSign stuff done back and forth to get set up with Silencer Shop. This is who we use to process the paperwork and buy the suppressor from or with their stuff. Wait times right now on tax stamps we've seen as fast as 12 hours.
Really?
Yeah, 12 hours to, I would say, 7 days on as an individual. I just had one come back on a trust, so they're doing multiple background checks on everybody on the trust. When you do that process with the trust, I had a trust come back in 12 days.
You contrast that.
Way faster.
A year ago it was 9 months. Yeah.
You contrast that. The first silencer I bought it on the day Joe Biden officially won the election, and it took 13 months.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. That was about right.
That was about right. 11 to 15 months.
Why it take so long then, so quicker now?
I think a lot of it is now, one, they're not using the U.S. Postal Service to mail documents back and forth. Everything's done electronically, so you're saving a lot of wait time there. And the other one is, I'm pretty sure they're using an electronic algorithm to process the background check and all that stuff. So if they run your name, if this algorithm using the digital media runs through using digital transfer of data, if it runs through the algorithm and they don't get any kind of a hit on your name, date of birth, social security number, whatever biographical information they put in there, and they don't get a hit on your fingerprints, on your APHIS number, so everybody's fingerprints, when you submit your fingerprints for testing, they assign a numerical value to it. It's a just long string of numbers, right? So if they run those two sets of data through that algorithm and there's no hits whatsoever in the NICS system or in the criminal justice system, they just process it right then. Mine have always taken longer because of the how common my name is. Right. With the last name of Johnson and the first name of John and middle name David, that's very common names in the English-speaking language. So I'm sure there's lots of John David Johnsons somewhere in the U.S. that have been in trouble with the law. But they've gotten it down to the process where a lot of the work now is done by a computer as opposed to a person.
And it is not a Trump-Biden thing, because it got better under Biden.
At the tail end of the Biden administration, it was getting better already. So it's nothing that Trump or anybody's done. It's just the system has gotten better, and the way they're doing it has gotten more efficient.
Now, if we could just make all that go away, it'll be all right.
Yeah.
That'd be the next step. Can they save you $200?
Yeah.
All right, we'll be right back. And we're back. So, as usual, we roll into the break and we talk about really cool stuff.
Yeah, we were.
Now y'all got to say it all again.
I'm
still digesting it.
On the Wiregrass segment, we were talking about how quick suppressor turnaround time, how quick tax stamps are coming back if you don't have any kind of criminal history or whatever. It's all done with an algorithm on the computer now, and it's coming back. They're coming back super fast. I had a suppressor come back on a trust in 12 days, which is way faster than I've ever had it before. So, but all of this is governed, and everybody says, "Oh, Trump's going to come in and he's going to do away with all that stuff." He can't. It's not legally possible for him to sign an executive order and do away with the need for a tax stamp on a suppressor or a tax stamp on a machine gun or an SBR. It is actually a law. It's a law that has been around for almost 100 years. So the National Firearms Act, it's been added to over the years, but it started in the roaring 20s to try to get all the gangsters up in Chicago from having Tommy guns.
Right. Yeah, they were trying to tax them out of $200 in 1920 was a lot of money.
Right. There again, they were trying to limit violence in the major metropolitan areas, the big cities where all the crime was occurring. They were trying to limit violence there the same way. And I was listening to Preston's, listening to his podcast on the way in today, and he was talking about, some post that was done over 10 years ago, and the guy was pretty accurate on it. The United States is one of the highest murder rates in the world. However, if you take out 4 or 5 key cities, we're among the bottom
really
ones,
low, yeah,
and we're very low. But it occurs in certain areas, and so much of our legislation and our laws are passed to deal with the big cities, who already have some of the toughest gun laws on record in those cities, which does absolutely no good, because you can just go across the border of the city limits, just like you can go across traditionally the southern border, the northern border, or whatever, and you have this free flow back and forth of this stuff. So, they can enact what they want to, but then they limit law-abiding citizens' ability to protect themselves in those cities because they can't do anything about it. Kind of like a school campus in Florida where you cannot carry a gun, university campus and all the gun-free zones and stuff that exist out there, which are asinine, because all you're doing is keeping law-abiding citizens who would carry to defend themselves and the people in their immediate surrounding to take away their right to defend themselves because they're on a piece of property, and
it's literally on the other side of the street.
Yeah, I mean, which sidewalk are you walking down now? I mean, is this who maintains this road? Are you on this property or on that property? And it's the whole thing's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It just is.
But I get the question I get probably as much or more than any other question is do I think that the tax stamps and the legalization or the relaxing of the law, the federal law governing NFA items, which is short barrel rifles and shotguns, suppressors, and machine guns. Those are the three things that the National Firearms Act deal with, regulation on. Do I think it's going to go away? And my answer is always not likely, because one, the Republicans traditionally don't want to do anything to start with about the law. Some of them are fine with it. The Republicans do not have a 60% majority in the Senate, and which it takes to pass a law there for the most part on most things. And thirdly is that it is a substantial stream of revenue for the federal government, tax revenue at $200 per item. And when have you ever known the government to give back, to do away with a tax? It doesn't normally. That is rare. They may restructure
now.
You may restructure. They're not doing away with tax. They're restructuring stuff, and that's it. Yeah. It affects one group or the other, but they don't. The government looks at revenue streams. They have to. So I don't see them doing away with that. So maybe they will. I don't know. But
I'd like to see them do away with giving money to people that don't pay taxes and giving them tax money. You can get money at the end of the year and you didn't pay any taxes. You didn't pay enough, and you're eligible to get money back.
The earned income tax credit.
Right. I didn't work this year, or I worked and I only paid this, and I'm getting all my money I paid in. Plus, I'm getting three times that. I'm getting all that stuff. Right. That's just redistribution of wealth.
That came under the Clinton administration.
Well, and now you got in Florida, there's this infighting. You've got the House who supports Trump and the Senate who seems to be supporting DeSantis, fighting each other in the state of Florida, and nothing's getting done because one side wants to do away with property taxes, one side wants to cut sales tax, and they're having this big argument right now about which side's right. Personally, I happen to know through research that the state gets no revenue from property taxes. So when the state wants to do away with property taxes, they're saying we want to take away funding from local governments. Well, okay, who's going to pay for the police
schools
and the fire
and police?
And there's an ad valorem for schools, and there's this and there's that. I don't really know. And then sales tax, you cut the sales tax. Yeah, you're taking money away from you're giving money back to tourists and all, but at the same time, you're also doing away with, some money that I pay out so I don't know which side I necessarily support. There's probably a compromise somewhere in the middle, but because one side doesn't want to see Casey DeSantis elected governor, they want the other guy to get it, and then somebody wants, and nobody wants to see, and and you're talking about Republicans in a Republican state, and this is what happens. What happens is one party takes over and dominates, and then they start infighting. Yep. And then nothing gets done, and then people get frustrated and they start voting for the other party again. Yep. And so my message to the Republicans in Florida: get your crap together and act right, because
I'll go ahead and echo that sentiment.
Yeah.
But I had a question for you on the silencers.
Okay.
All right. So I've got a silencer account.
Mm-hmm. Silencer shop. Yep.
Yeah. So I have a silencer shop account.
Yep.
Can I take that, and if you've got an automatic weapon out there I want to get, can I say, all right, I want to buy that, and then use my silencer shop account?
Yep. It's a Form 4. So all NFA transfers occur on a federal NFA Act Form 4, which is a transfer from one entity to another. So yes, if I owned a machine gun that you wanted to buy and it was a transferable gun that I could sell to you, it would be Form 4 from the company to you.
And I could buy that today and potentially
leave with it next week. Yes.
Wow.
And it's the same process with a suppressor. It's the same Now, if you want to manufacture your own short barrel rifle, not machine gun, there's restrictions from a 1986 revision of the NFA that says you can't make any new machine guns. No machine guns manufactured since May of 1986 are 100% not transferable.
Okay.
So I have the license that Charlie and I have to operate this business. We're a manufacturer. I can go in the back room back there and manufacture a machine gun. I file a Form 2 with the government to say, hey, I'm building a machine gun. This is the serial number. This is the caliber. This is what it is. I'm going to build this with my license. And when it gets completed and tested and ready to go and it's functional and I want to go down to the range and use it for whatever purposes I built it for as a manufacturer, I can do that.
You just can't sell it.
I can't sell it to you. I can't sell it to any other dealer. What used to be called a Class 3 dealer, which doesn't exist anymore,
you gotta give it back to the government.
without a law enforcement letter. So if let's say I wanted to manufacture some new swanky machine gun, and there was some police agency in another state or another entity that wanted to buy that gun from me, I could transfer it and the sheriff there wrote a letter to a dealer and say to another SOT dealer, what used to be called Class 3. They said, hey, Bob down there at Bob's gun shop, hey, Bob, this guy over there in Tallahassee built this cool new machine gun that we're looking at supplying our officers with. Then Bob could call me and say, hey, I got it here. You got a cool new machine gun. And I'm like, yeah. He goes, well, I want to test it. The sheriff here wants to test it. That's what's called a law letter. So I could sell it to that dealer then with that law letter. But that's really the only way to have and deal with machine guns.
If I want to buy an M16, it's going to be expensive.
Pre-May '86, and it's going to cost you $35,000 to $40,000.
That's what I thought.
And there are cases looking at the Supreme Court now about the traditional use of certain firearms and why some of that might not have been legal when it was passed. But we'll see long term. We'll be right back. And we're back.
I wonder if we're gonna have the weather forecast. The weather people have been missing bad this week.
They've been lying like a rug. I mean,
yeah. Well, I was sitting there looking on Thursday, sitting there looking at the thing, and they're saying, "Oh man, it's gonna be bad weather and flood." And I was watching the radar and the future cast, and they're showing this rain all of a sudden just magically appearing on top of us out of nowhere. It wasn't like a front coming through, and I'm going, okay, well that's the air coming off the Gulf and meeting the other air, and we're going to cause this storm stuff, which we've seen happen. And dang, if it didn't rain a drop, I got just a little bit on Friday morning, a little bit of sprinkle on my windshield on the way to work.
I went home the other day, and it didn't rain anywhere but close to the house, got 2 inches last week. And then spread fertilizer yesterday, or day before yesterday, if you're listening to the show, and spread the fertilizer on our hayfield, thinking, okay, well, we need some rain. And it came about a quarter inch, right, or a little less, just enough to soak that urea fertilizer, that nitrogen into the ground and get it. And we got a bunch of rain supposed to be coming this weekend, but we can have a gully washer now if you want to, because it soaked that fertilizer in the ground. So it hit just perfect. And I burned a pile I probably shouldn't have burnt.
The Shoot SIG competition is going on this weekend, Saturday and Sunday at the range here in Midway, because SIG factory reps are here with demo guns and things you can come out and shoot SIG products and shoot in a competition. If you own a SIG, you might win a SIG or might win another SIG. So they're here this weekend, and these two boys that were come down here, they live up in New Hampshire near SIG's headquarters up there, and they're like, man, it's been raining and cold up there and this, that, and the other. And it's supposed to rain all weekend down here. And I'm like, a little different down here. It may or may not, man. I said, you might be dealing with 90 and sunshine, and then 5 minutes later, some
bring all your stuff. Bring everything. You might need a raincoat, umbrella, or shorts.
But you're not going to be cold.
Yeah.
So you're not going to be freezing.
Yeah.
I just got a text. So I mentioned on the last show going to the Graceville livestock goat and bird
roping?
auction. Yeah, the goat and chicken auction.
Goat roping. Yeah.
Well, Billy Bailey just reached out to me. He wants to teach some more foraging classes. So we're looking at May 24th or June the 7th. I got to go look at our training schedule, see what room's available for him, and we'll announce that. But he went to the sale last night, and I was going to take CJ, but I got tied up working on the tractor. He said there was a ram that sold for $620. For a doggone ram.
You got to be kidding me.
I'm tell you what. I teed that one up for you, didn't I? That's pretty cool. Oh, anyway. But none of that had anything to do with fishing. What's going on in the fishing world?
We got a full moon coming up.
Oh,
And finally, we got some cloudy weather. I think they're going to really bite this weekend. The bass fishing's been doing good. Brim starting to bed. Shell cracker halfway, about 3/4 way through. Hopefully, we'll still get a chance to get you on them.
Hey man, I'm all for. I'm fine with bluegill too. So,
but they're just now getting started. They've been keeping the water down up there on the Lake Seminole. This morning was about 1.5 foot low.
Well, on your way home, I have a favorite ad. When you next time you ride by the Chattahoochee boat landing on the river for me, and look at that first bridge piling on the Chattahoochee side. It's at the base of that bridge piling. There's a big square chunk of concrete at the bottom of that bridge piling, and if there's about 6 or 8 inches of that big square part beneath there, if it's sticking out of the water that far, or even if the water's just barely flowing over that big part of that bridge piling, let me know.
Okay.
Because that's when that river is
just right.
Right. So I have been jonesing so bad to go fish the river over there because it's not like fishing. I got lakes and I live on a lake. I got places to fish over here in ponds and lakes. Fishing in the river is something special about it. I don't know. It's just
it is.
But so
there's some big shoal bass down there too.
There's a big largemouth in there too. I'm
not shoal bass. I meant
red eyes,
spots,
red eyes. There's 3 different species
of Kentucky's spotted bass.
I told you about my granddaddy, my pawpaw held the state record red eye bass for years, caught in the Apalachicola River, 7 pounds.
Really?
Yep.
Wow. Now that's not a shoal bass. A red eye's not a shoal. We got shoals up the Flint.
Yeah, it is. It's called a Coosa bass or a red eye bass.
Okay.
They're indigenous to the Flint Chattahoochee River system, and it's the world record at the time he caught the state record. His state record was 7 pounds even. The world record at that time was 7.6.
Wow.
I think the world record is now just under 8 pounds, and the state record is 7.6. Or 7.7.
When did he catch that fish? Do you remember?
Golly, Paul, it had to have been in the early 80s because I was probably 13, 14 years old. And the only reason he had the state record is because I kept him from putting the fillet knife to it. Because when we had caught, we had been down the river.
You was with him that day?
Oh, yeah. I netted.
Awesome.
I dip netted the fish. We were fishing down below the trestle, and he caught that bass on a crankbait, and I dipped him up and didn't think much about it. We'd caught 2 or 3 5-pound-plus bass, and like I told you, man, when I was growing up, you didn't throw fish back in the water unless they were too small.
Yeah.
Everything that we caught that got the fillet knife and got fried on Friday night, know. And but we caught those fish and had another about the same pound, 6.5, 7 pound largemouth in there, and he cleaned that one first when we got to the house and we're cleaning fish, and he had just got done skinning that first largemouth that he picked up, and he reached in there and got the other fish and threw it up on the cleaning table, and as soon as it hit the table, I looked at it and I said, "Hold on, Papa, I don't know what that is." He goes, "Well, it's a bass, son." I'm like, "No, sir." I said, "It's something different about that fish." And I reached down and took the old the hide that he had peeled off of that other big bass, and I laid because he skinned them and filleted them, and I laid the hide up next to the fish that the red eye, and I said, "See, all this is very different." And I said, and look at that black spot of right behind his dorsal fin. I said, and the fins are different, and the mouth is different. And I started pointing out all the difference. And he goes, "Well, man, I think you might be right." And he goes, "I don't know what that is." And I said, "Well, let's call your buddy, your biologist buddy at FWC, and let's call him." And he went in the house and looked up the phone number and called the guy, and the guy had us meet him down at the bait store down there at Burkett's down there by the river where they had some certified scales, and he met us down there, and he goes, "Mr. Reynolds, that's the biggest red-eye bass I've ever seen."
Wow.
And Papa said, "What's a red-eye bass?" And he explained it to him, and he goes, threw it up on the scale, and he goes, "Mr. Reynolds, that's a state record." He said because the record at the time before that was like 4.5 pounds or something. This weighed 7.
Well, I got a pretty important question. What did you catch him on? Can you tell?
I am pretty sure it was either a 7A bomber silver flash, or it was a 7A bomber crawfish, or it was a 7A bomber chartreuse. And I don't remember exactly what. I think it was this shad-colored silver flash, because I think that's what we ended up. But the state took all the measurements, gave him a certificate, paid for the taxidermy.
Really?
Yep. And did all that stuff, paid for the fish to be taxidermied, and all of that stuff because it was a state record.
Wow.
I got a
And,
more important
Where's that
question.
taxidermy?
That's
today?
awesome.
It is at my Uncle James's house.
Huh.
So
I got a more important question. If I want to go fish ponds in my area this weekend with the full moon, what do I need to be using?
I would definitely.
A cast net.
That would
Dynamite.
work. Dynamite would work. But if you want to stay legal,
Try to be serious around you people. And
there's two baits. You need to take a topwater frog,
topwater frog,
hollow belly frog, and then have a worm, a Cinco.
a Cinco
Or
worm.
8-inch, 10-inch worm, any fish to bottom and on top. One of the two is going to catch them.
Put a weight on the worm.
Depends how much muck you got on the bottom. You don't want it sinking.
Okay, so maybe no weight.
You can, yeah,
Just let it sink.
just let it sink. Fish is slow. Right now, the brim. I know what one of the lakes you're thinking about. I know the brim are actually bedding on there. I have a good source who told me, so you could definitely catch some big ones around brim beds right now.
Okay, around the brim bed, Cinco,
Yes,
color.
just stick with green pumpkin.
All right.
Can't go bad with that.
What color frog?
Frog, as long as it I would go with a Spro popping frog and get a color called it's called speck.
Spro popping frog, color called speck.
That one or
any
leopard
frog with a white belly,
Any frog with
white
a
or
white belly.
white or yellow belly, because that's
I've got. I tell you,
I'm saying
you're
this because
right.
I'm gonna go back and listen to it.
I would definitely try that.
And you pop him what around lily
Properly on
pads?
the lily pad, any kind of cover.
Any cover. All right.
But the key to that now, if you're gonna fish that, make sure you're using a heavier action rod with frog with braided line, at least 50-pound braided line. Because when you set the hook, you got to get both those hooks into their mouth. So you need a stiffer rod.
If
And-
it's raining, what do I need to be fishing?
you need to be inside when it's raining. Or lightning.
If
Lightning.
it's
will get
lightning,
you.
stay inside. If it's not, frog, throw that frog. They'll bite it.
Okay. Frog.
They're
in the
gonna bite
rain.
this weekend.
Yeah, I think you're
that's
right.
gonna
They're
happen?
gonna bite this weekend. Yes, sir.
Okay.
And I wanted to mention, if anybody wants to get a gift certificate, thanks for Mr. Fred giving me this idea, please give me a call at 850-264-7534 or look me up on Facebook at Captain Paul Tire Fishing. I had a person call last week that listened to the show. Our conversation about getting a rod and reel had some great questions from Dustin. Really nice guy.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, the
And-
gift certificate looks pretty cool too.
All right. We'll see y'all next week.
All right.